Hey there, welcome to the TBH podcast with me, Toby B. Hemingway. This is the audio version of the Substack I publish weekly, which you can find at tbhemingway.substack.com. On this episode, I've got the audio from a video chat with my good old pal, Al Murphy. Al is a very funny illustrator and artist from England. We met in London when we were both playing music and doing some pretty boring ad agency type work to keep the lights on, and we immediately became very good friends. We lost track as we both sort of moved around the globe, but reconnected very serendipitously one night in New York City. We talk about that a little bit, and we start off the conversation talking about Uluru and whether or not it's worth taking your kids there. Al is publishing very funny reels on Instagram regularly if you want to check him out there. He also published a book with Scholastic, I think it was last year. The name of that is A Duck Called Brian. It's very funny. My kids love it. I've read it to my daughter many times. She's a big fan of Al's too. So I hope you enjoy this chat. Check out the Substack, obviously, and subscribe to this podcast if you like to get your writing in an audio form. I hope you enjoy the chat with Al. Here we go. There I go, Collier Dares Rock, Uluru. Anyway, I'm hoping to take the kids there one of these days, but not yet, because it's a long journey.
They'll be like, oh, fuck, what, it's just a big lump of rock, and, would they? My kid would. Maybe your kids wouldn't.
I don't know, we went to the Grand Canyon and Monument Valley over spring break, and they were pretty cool with that. I think in the presence of something that unique as Uluru is, there is something even within the most sort of overly sugared iPad addicted child. I think there is a human thing that happens in the presence of that sort of spectacle.
Well, you say that, but I was 22 when I went to the Grand Canyon, and I was like, I didn't get it.
That's worse, though. 22 is worse.
What do you mean? What is it? What I had?
Is there more of a shithead age for a bloke than 22?
True.
I mean, you're so in your own soup at that point. All you care about is how cool you are.
Number one. This guy.
How old were we when we met, Al? Not far removed from that age.
Not too far off. It was 2005, so I would have been
4
or 5. 28.
Yeah, me
28.
too.
I was okay. The good old days. The glory days. I think I'd come out of full dickhead. Had a little bit of dickhead, still got a little bit of, but it was a good time. I remember late 20s, early 30s was a good time. Sensitive times.
Yes, especially for singer-songwriters.
Totally.
Yeah.
Had started, experimenting with empathy. Thinking about other people's feelings.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good time. I don't look back at that time and wince too much. And I had energy and I had ambition.
Yeah.
So yeah, we met at a good time. And you wouldn't have liked me at 22, man. I probably wouldn't have liked you either. Maybe. I don't know.
That's very presumptuous. Oh man, I've been
Were you quite serious? I bet you were quite earnest, weren't you?
Let me think about this. I've been doing some writing about, personal writing lately, and some of it involves that period. I think I was very confused. I don't know, earnest, maybe a little, but also using drugs and
oh really? You would okay? Yeah.
Just not like. I wasn't like a junkie or anything, but if I was out on a Saturday night and someone had something, you'd have a crack, and I don't. It took me about 4 or 5 years to realize why I was doing that. Not because I was having as much fun as I thought I was.
Oh, okay.
So I was probably more kind of tragic than earnest. in hindsight.
Yeah, okay, that's very honest of you. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, maybe I was a bit the same. I wasn't doing drugs because I was a troubled young man. Is that what you were saying? Were you a little bit troubled? I wasn't. I was just doing it
Um,
because,
I think I
yeah.
was. I don't think it's in my nature to, yeah, I don't think it's in my nature to just be doing drugs.
Oh, okay.
I
I
think I
would
was doing
just.
them because they work, because they just make you like, oh
Oh,
yeah, everything's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay. Oh, that's ironic because I was doing it, but it was having the complete opposite effect. I would be freaking
Uh,
out. I'd be the guy in the bathroom having a panic attack. And then the next week I'd do the same thing again because it was that age where you just think, okay, that's what we're doing, is it? Oh God, okay. And I just went along with the ride for a while. Yeah, I was talking to a friend recently, and he was talking about how much he loves being this age now.
mhm.
We talked last week about me freaking out about being older and having a bit of a midlife crisis, and he was saying, "Oh, I love it. I love it. I spent the whole of my 20s in clubs thinking, when can I go home? Have I done the requisite amount of time?" And he said,
Right.
now I'm just like, I'm not even going in the club, or if I do happen to find myself in the club, I'm out of there. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I thought, oh yeah, I get what you're talking about, but I just never had the kahunas to say, listen, guys, this is shit. So I
I
would
think
just
I felt
stand
that
there.
way. Like we started drinking shockingly early when I was a kid. Just because it's Australia and Catholic boys' school. And
Sure.
anyway,
Do you mean early in the day or early in your
no, in
life?
my life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. In my years. So, but between like 16 and 20, I
Hmm.
probably felt like your friend where I was like, just, oh, yeah, this is what you do. And I went
Yeah.
through this hilarious phase of drinking bourbon on the rocks because I thought that
Oh,
was like
cool.
manly. Uh,
Yeah.
and that would never end well,
No.
you
I
know.
mean, at any age, let alone
No, it,
16, right?
it took me, yeah, now I'll have one or two like that, but you don't have one or two or anything at that age.
No.
And I just, so
Oh,
I used to, it took me until about 21, 22 to realize, yeah, that's not working.
no.
But
Well, you
how
went straight in
old?
at the hard stuff. We started on cider or cheap lager.
No, we started on beer,
Throw that
but
up. Oh,
but
okay.
then once I could go to like clubs at like 17, 18, that's when I
Hmm.
started to experiment with like, oh, maybe I'll have a, bourbon on the rocks.
Were you wearing a fedora and some sunglasses pulled down? And were you smoking a cigarette and just pointing at girls? Because that's what
You
it sounds
know,
like.
that might have got me further than whatever kind
Yeah.
of like at one point there I was experimenting with a kind of Mel Gibson from the first Lethal Weapon kind of thing
Great, great vibe.
it was
Pre.
very because it was very fashionable to have like um a mullet kind of, which he did in
Yeah.
that film.
Oh, great mullet.
Like workwear was very fashionable, like
Okay.
work boots, flannel shirt because it's the 90s, you
Yeah.
know. And so yeah, it was less stylish than the fedora and trying to be sort of consciously unstylish in a way, like in that
Oh,
Lethal Weapon
cool.
kind of way.
Hey, this is why it's so complicated to be that age. You're trying to spin so many plates, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
now I can barely get myself dressed. Whereas back
Yeah.
then it was, hey, I'm trying to be cool, but not too cool, but a
Well,
little bit cool, just
then I
cool.
went through my thrift store phase, which I'm sure you went through
Mm.
when that was a
Oh,
thing.
Natch. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
that was the phase that I was in when I first arrived in New York. Oh man, the wanting to look like, actually my thrift store phase lasted a long time.
Yeah, so did
From,
mine.
yeah, in fact, I'm thinking of getting back into the thrift store phase. So
Talk
there
about
was
midlife
some,
crises. Wow, this is
totally.
great. Um, Before we get on to
Oh,
midlife crises, so your son,
yeah.
how old's your son?
10.
Okay, so same with mine. And
Yeah.
what I noticed recently is speaking of like being a dickhead, um, They're just developing that gene.
Yeah, and it comes quick. It's like
Yeah,
cute, 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 sweet, fucking arsehole.
yeah,
And it's the arseholeness in our case didn't sort of like develop like, oh, I've learned this little trick. It was just like one day I'm a complete prick, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And I was like, whoa, where's this come from? But I think those little guys have got a lot going on. There's a
yeah,
lot of stuff that they're dealing with in the schoolyard. So I'm trying to give him
yeah,
a break. And I don't think with Cass, I don't think he's inherently a prick. I don't think his core is prick. I think that he's experimenting with prickness,
yeah,
and he's a good guy. Whereas
yeah.
there are some kids, and I'll bet you know some of these little fuckers as well, and they are fully formed to the core fuck jobs. Do you
I
know what I
see.
mean?
Oh yeah, I see it. Where I see all this play out the most sort of plainly is sporting stuff. So
Oh, okay.
Willie
We steered
loves sport.
He's he's a sport guy, is he? We
Yeah,
steered Cass away from the sports because I'm not into the sports,
right. And
and
you didn't think he should be either.
no, I wanted him at home with an
Good on
Elliott
him.
Smith poster on
Yeah,
the wall,
yeah,
crying,
yeah,
collecting his tears, and writing poetry as he
yeah,
did that. And actually, it's backfired pretty massively
yeah,
because now all the kids at school are playing football, and I've done a great job of creating an Elliott Smith character, but in so much as he has no friends and he doesn't know how to interact with other people because I
yeah.
don't like football. So my bad. If I had my time
I
again,
I always think
sport.
that reminds me that I knew a guy once who knew Elliot sort of through music and through the
Oh,
neighborhood, in
yeah,
east side
yeah.
of LA. And I remember him telling me, and the bar is still there, that the last time he saw Elliot, he was at this bar called the Drawing Room
Okay,
in Los Feliz, and it smells like gym shorts in there. Like
great.
it is a
Mm,
genuine dive bar that has survived
yeah.
somehow through a mass gentrification of that area.
Ah,
And he said he was just sitting in there alone, drinking beer
right.
after beer, just like, on the
Okay.
bar like that,
Yeah.
just sitting there.
Not having a
And
great time.
no, that's the real Elliot Smith, that as
Sure.
opposed to the
And
kid
that it,
who, is
yeah.
nerdy about it.
And yeah, if you told me that story when I was 23, I'd be like, oh my God, that sounds so awesome.
No,
When you're
even at the time, I remember thinking, "Wow, that sounds sad,"
pretty grim,
you know.
pretty
But
grim. Yeah.
yeah. So with the sporting stuff, what I see is I'll hear little things, like I'll see them do little things on the field, and then I'm like, yeah, okay, and then I'll hear things from my son about, like, oh, so and so, or one of the kids said this, one of the kids said that.
Mm,
He won't sort of name names, and then I'll, like, for instance, this season, he's playing baseball right now. I had to go look after the dugout for the night,
mm,
which is the bench. And so you're saying, you're on, you're off, so on and so forth, because the batting order and all this sort of stuff, you got to take care of it. And dude, that's where I'm just like, oh, I know who said the stuff about that. Oh, I know who. Yeah, so
yeah.
this guy's like that, right? You see it
Yeah.
immediately. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, he's just a prick. Like, that
Yeah.
kid is a prick.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think all kids experiment with it, like you say. But the question
Mm.
is, can you guide them to their better selves?
I
Like,
think in some cases, but I do think that some kids come out fully formed.
oh yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. There's some kids in that dugout. I'm like,
They're gonna
I'm
be
writing that kid.
jock bros.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be a teacher or anything, because I'm like, I'm writing that kid off.
No,
Like,
no, completely. I mean,
yeah,
I was naive because I thought if I just steer him away from sport, because I had some not great experiences at school. I was the smaller kid, and so sport wasn't for me. And I really, things got party time began when I found my music crew, and
yeah,
like you get a little bit older. So I naively thought, oh, I'll just keep him away from that crew. I'll just steer him away from that, and then it'll all be fine. But that was stupid because those sport guys are still gonna. He's on their register, but
Yeah.
he's even more of a target because he doesn't get involved at all, and that was my bad, you know. But whatever. I keep saying to him, "Look, dude, you're not going to see any of these kids." And he doesn't get bullied or anything. He's just like floating
Yeah, yeah,
around
yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah.
satellite in the playground, you know. But I
Yeah,
was trying to
when
do I was trying to I just couldn't face I couldn't bear the idea of standing on a touchline on a Saturday. This is England as well. It's not like in a Tom Hanks movie where there's like that hazy orange sky and the kids are playing baseball in slow-mo and someone's going, "Yeah, good job." And then you all eat a hot dog after. This is fucking raining, mud spattered, shithole fucking park playing fucking football, getting
yeah.
covered in shit, and then driving home in the rain. I thought, fuck that, I'm not doing it. But that was quite selfish on my part. Um, Maybe things would have been different had we stayed in America. I don't know. I don't know.
But there's also a one of the things that I struggle with still, even though I played sport a lot as a kid, and then taking my son to his sports, is that there is a cultural element to that goes beyond the weather and everything. Like the part of probably what you're avoiding is that there is that yobbo kind of thing that you have to interface with a bit when you get involved with sports, because not
Yeah.
everyone who you deal with is like, yeah, you go, kid. Like
Yeah.
you run into some sport idiots who
Yeah,
think it's the most
right.
important thing in the world. You
Yeah,
know,
this is the thing. I mean, like, not to tar everyone that's into, you're into sport, you're a sport guy, right? And you're a sensitive guy, but I fucking couldn't wait for sport to exit my life. So
yeah.
when I had a kid, I thought, well, I'm not gonna, why would I push him into that? But it's a difficult one. If I had my time again, I probably would sort of say, but yeah, selfishly, exactly that. I couldn't face, having sport chat and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Sport chat with sport dad. Oh no.
I
No,
was lucky.
thanks.
The environment I grew up in, playing music like as a in my late teens, early 20s in Melbourne,
Yeah.
there's this wonderful, like, sport is the dominant culture in Melbourne, football
Yeah.
particularly, Australian football. And but Melbourne's also a big like music and art town. And
Okay.
there is this little intersection that happens
Hmm.
where there's this there there was always a group of musicians, whether famous, not, or whatever, who were also into sport because it was so much a part
Sure.
of our upbringing.
Sure.
And you could find a way to be into both without having to sort of betray yourself.
Oh, that's good. And
Do
also,
you know what I mean? Because you knew where to
I
put it in context of the world and life.
no,
It
I do know
didn't,
what you mean because
yeah.
I was that guy. I did play sport. I was actually pretty good at
And I
football,
mean
but
being a fan as well as playing. Like a lot of it's being a fan too, and
okay,
doing
yeah,
that in a
sure.
more thoughtful way.
But I did all of that because I was quite savvy. For me, it was all about not getting my head kicked in. So I
Right.
would do all of those things, and I was good enough at it that no one would go, "Are you just doing this so you're not going to get your head kicked in?" I was pretty nippy on the pitch, but the whole time I was doing it, I thought, "Fuck this! I can't be bothered with this." And then as soon as I, found my music bros, um, and art. Yeah, I haven't even but back then I was just obsessed with music, you
Yeah.
know.
So when I met you, to put some context into sort of where we find ourselves now, we met, I think, at Under the Westway, right?
Did we did. I was
And can
working, I had a desk space in the studio of Jamie Hewlett, who was doing the Gorilla stuff at the time. He still
Yep,
is.
yep,
And then next door there was like an ad agency.
yep.
And you were working for the ad agency,
I
and
was
I
temping
worked for the
there.
ad agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Lucian and those guys, they were fun, fun guys.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
is
and
he a
that's where we
Kiwi?
met. He was a Kiwi. Good guy, Lucian. Don't know where he is now, but I like that guy. Yeah. And he used to commission me to do stuff for them, and you were doing stuff for them. I don't
Yeah.
think we did stuff together,
No.
but at the time I was gung ho. I was all about becoming the next Elliot Smith. I was
Right.
obsessed, being a sensitive guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, that didn't happen. But the art thing did. And you know what? I've thought about this over time. I think that not ironically, but the art thing happened because I was trying so hard to make the music thing happen that I kind of didn't try too hard with the art. So I was kind of loose. I was loose with the art, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
And you were, I mean, that like that to explain to people who don't really know that space, that was the center of sort of London pop culture at the time, or sort of not even pop culture, but sort of almost something cooler, right?
you
The
mean
Under the
that
Westway,
it was
where the
amazing. Yeah, I
because
was
that was
very,
where,
very
yeah,
lucky.
yeah, that was where, as you say, that guy was doing the Gorillas artwork, and then,
Yeah, there
and I
was a couple of
think,
record labels in there.
yeah, that's
Uh,
right. And there was a club like where you could
there
go
was a
after
club.
hours.
Oh
Yeah,
boy, yeah, there was a club. There was a TV production company, so you'd have like film stars, and there was
yeah,
a model agency in there. It was kind of like every cliche of pop culture in this melting pot.
yeah.
Um,
And now it's
and
gone, right?
no, it's still there. It's
Right.
still there. I just don't think it has. I think it's now just like kind of
Offices.
it, there was a 2 year period where it was really hot. It was the hot place to be. So
Yeah.
all of these cool people moved in, and then everyone moved out.
So,
I think they had
so,
like a 2 year long party, and then
so I don't really know
left.
why we were there.
Me personally, or you, or us,
Us,
I was a
me.
ligger. I just ligged on.
Yeah.
I was a professional ligger for most of my 20s.
A ligger. I don't know that one.
You don't know ligger?
No.
A, a peripheral clinger honor. Yeah,
We used to call them hangers when I was a kid.
I guess I was a hanger. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
hanger.
But yeah,
Um,
well, but now moving on to stuff about middle age, because when this piece of art of yours I have here,
yeah,
which
great
I'm going to
piece.
display,
Really, really good.
which people can buy
Really,
as a card, I realize looking at your site.
is it still on there? And maybe not anymore. I mean, I've had
Okay.
so few sales in of anything in the last 2 years that my website is just this forgotten wasteland that I never even check in on. And occasionally I will get a sale, and it'll be something that hasn't been in production for about 5 years. I'll think, oh fuck. And,
Oh,
and
and you
I'll
got to
have to
do it. Yeah.
email that person and say, I'm sorry, I hadn't updated
It was a
my
lie. The that so you did that over 10 years ago, probably,
Oh Matt,
because
hey, what's that little bubble
oh
with
look,
a
it does think because I did that.
hey, I want it. Did it do
Look,
it for me?
it should.
Ah,
Give it a second.
hey.
It's
Oh
not
no,
doing
I've
it.
just
Doesn't do it in
oh
England.
well. Okay.
Um, so I think when I when
Oh,
so
I
you and
did
I
that
lost
for
contact, and
oh,
then
yeah,
I
tell the
was in.
story.
We lost contact because I left London, and
You left London to go to Australia, am I right? Is
yeah, I
this
went
going
to
to be
Australia
interesting for anyone? I don't know if this will be, but it leads up to a great anecdote in terms
when
of
when we reunited.
that
Yeah,
was amazing.
it was.
What
So
a
I went to Australia, and I thought I don't know if, I didn't know if I'd ever see you again. And then I moved back here to Los Angeles, and then you had moved to New York, which I didn't know
wreck.
because we
Yeah,
hadn't talked since I left London. Because this is
sure.
before Instagram and shit, so we weren't like, oh look, El's on the beach or whatever.
Yeah,
And then I went to New York. It was one of those, these situations when you're trying to be Elliot Smith,
yeah.
and you just like you're doing everything off your own bat, pretty much. And it was one of those
Yeah.
things where I have a publishing company, I still do, but they had an office in New York or whatever, and I had a show planned out there. I think, but it was all off my own bat. Like I got to fly myself out there, stay somewhere, book the show,
Yeah.
and I was doing that. I had a brother. My brother was living there at that point, but I don't think he was there. So I went on my own, and no one was there.
Okay.
And I either stayed at
Right.
his empty place or my friend's empty place, but no one
Okay.
was there.
All right.
And I'm wandering around, and it's one of those things is where it's like, oh, the person from the publishing company, whatever, oh, can't meet you, see you at the show, and it's like, oh, can't come to the show, and you just spend your whole time like, oh, okay. And
Yeah.
I was having one of those moments, standing on a street on my cell phone, talking to Jess, like my wife, why the hell did I put myself through this just for
Yeah.
one show or something in a meeting that didn't happen? And
Mm.
as I was complaining, you walked by.
Little
And I
Murph
said, I got to
jobs.
get off the phone. I think I just saw someone I know.
Yeah.
And there
What are
you
the
were.
chances of that? Second Avenue, East 10th Street,
Is that where it
7th
was?
Ave,
Yeah,
10th.
I was
If I
lost.
can remember.
Yeah.
And you were just leaning on the bar, and I was thinking, late, if I'd been on the other side of the street or walked down there 10 minutes later, I mean, there's 11 million people in that
Yeah.
city. That was,
Wouldn't.
and you just went, and I'll never forget, you went, hey, hell. And I was like, what? It deserves more than that. Don't try and fucking outcool this. This is unbelievable. I couldn't but fucking leave it. It was
Yeah.
amazing. It remains one of my favorite whoa moments. And then it was great because, and the other thing that was great about that time is that now, if that
Mm,
happened now,
mm.
and you go, "Hey man, how you doing?" I'd be like, "Ah, great. I'm on my way to pick up my kid, and then I could
Yeah.
be free next Tuesday for
Yeah.
five." No, wait, he's got a class. I can't. But
Yeah.
that was that age where it was just like, "Do you want to get a beer? Sure. Where should we go? How about there? Great." And we had a beer, and it
Yeah.
was great. Very good times.
And we
Good times.
reconnected. And then you wound up doing a show at my old store, which is when I got
Yeah,
that piece because that was part of the show.
sure.
And then that was when you were expecting your boy, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's God. Yeah, good memory. He was 4 weeks away from due, and and my wife said, "Go and do the show," and she said, "And stay out for a while." But I was terrified that he'd come
Yeah.
at
And you'd be on the other
while I
side of the
was there.
country. I remember
Yeah,
that. You were
exactly.
very nervous
But
about that.
I was very nervous, and the nerves have never subsided. But I remember she said, stay for like 2 or 3 more nights. And I didn't. I came, hung the show, we had a little opening, and then I flew back. And now I think, and I'd say this to anyone who's got a kid on the way, stay for a couple of days. If
Oh,
you've
yeah.
got that thing that you were thinking, but stay. I wanted to go down to the Rainbow Lounge and see if Lemmy was drinking a
Yeah.
Jack Daniels at Coke, and now Lemmy's dead, and all of those things, and it probably would have been rubbish, but I should have done it, and I
So
didn't. I
we did that show. So you were, and that was great. And you had all this work that you'd done, like your own work, rather than stuff you were doing for clients or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and and then so how did that how did work change when he arrived? Because then 4 weeks later, like you have your
Oh,
son.
when Cass arrived,
Yeah,
for me, it wasn't the 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 nuclear bomb goes off, the kid arrives, and you
yeah,
lose your mind for 2 or 3 months.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
And I remember it was he came early summer, and in New York, it's just misery in New York. It's so hot.
Oh, you were still in New
And
York then. You weren't in London, right? That's right.
still
Yeah.
in New York, we stayed in New York for a year after he was born.
Yep.
And I didn't even entertain any notion of doing any work. I was quite lucky at the time because there was more work around, and I'd had loads of work. And so financially, we were okay. He came, and then work it was the summer. So everyone just took, no, no work was sloshing around. So I didn't have that stress of like, oh, I should be doing that job. And he arrived, and it was just a and everything just went to shit, and I didn't know who I was, and I couldn't get dressed, and I was covered in vomit, and it was misery. I fucking hated it. And then with the heat, the searing heat, and oh, it was just awful. But I didn't have to juggle having a newborn baby with work, and I didn't even bother trying because here's an anecdote that I tell everyone. I remember going in to this Key Foods and we needed broccoli. I'd been told that Annie should be eating loads of broccoli because it was full of, well, I don't know. I don't even know if that's true, but I went in broccoli, broccoli, and I'll never forget. I couldn't find the broccoli. And I remember saying to one of the staff, do you know? I'm looking for a vegetable, and I was so tired I couldn't remember what broccoli was called. And I was saying, it's like a tree. You know the green one? It's like a tree. And he was
I
looking at me
thought you were
like,
nuts.
what the? And I had baby vomit all down my top, and I hadn't slept in days. I
Yeah.
remember that. So that was that. And what was the question? How did we sort of juggle? So the summer was really bad, and then it settled down, and we
Yeah.
got into he settles down, and this is it's really hard when you have a kid not to look at new parents. You know, when your kid's a little bit older, and now I look at it's really hard not to say to people with a baby, well, enjoy that because it's going to get fucking. You think this is hard? I
Yeah.
don't want to be that guy because some people do say things like that. And when you're a new parent, you're like, don't tell me that. And that's so I don't do it, but I'm kind of looking at because for us, for me, it got really hard, more like when he was sort of 4, 5. When they're a baby, they're pretty easy. You do the feed, you sleep, put them over there, and then you can get on with some work and you don't feel guilty. It's when he got to 3 to maybe more like 3, 4, and they want you to play and they
Mm.
need you.
Mm.
And you're conscious that if you are staring at a computer for 3 or 4 hours and you're not available, that's bad. That's damaging. So I started struggling then. But inherently, I'm a pretty selfish person. This is what parenthood taught me. I am, it's me time. I
Yeah.
I still want to be Elliot Smith at the bar, feeling, hey, I need 3 hours of just feeling.
Yeah.
Shh.
Yeah.
And you can't, that's not cool. So it got tough for me when I realized that he would be like, oh, okay, I'll just go and play on my own then, or,
Yeah.
you know, but I still grapple with it because I'm really fucking selfish. And my wife, I don't think she'd mind me saying this. She's an artist as well,
Yeah.
Annie. When the muse takes you or when you've got a project, you really want to go all in on it,
Yeah.
but you can't. And
I know.
I
Yeah.
struggle with that.
I think more than, I mean, selfish. Yeah. Maybe that's part of it, but I think it's also, isn't that like having needing that time to yourself is part of the craft, right? Like you can't, I don't think you can really make things without having that sort of,
Yeah, I
I mean,
sort of
that
think
self-reflection sort of, I guess.
I get it correct.
Yeah.
Whenever I talk like this, I think, I wonder how a nurse who's just done an 18-hour shift
Yeah.
must feel when she listens to some whiny little prick saying, oh,
Mm.
I can't do a drawing because I haven't had the time to discover myself. Do you know
That
what I
is
mean?
true. That is
So,
true. But I think creativity or art requires a different thing. And
yeah.
hopefully the nurse opens up her Instagram and sees one of your reels and gets a good chuckle out of it.
Now, fingers crossed, man. Well,
Right.
I've been thinking in the last few years, what is the perfect job to be if you're a parent?
Yep.
And I've come up with the answer.
Hmm.
It's a teacher
Right.
because you clock off at
Yep.
4 o'clock,
Same
you've
time.
done your day, holidays all align. And my dad was a teacher, so I sort of think, huh. he didn't have any of these kind of
Yeah,
conflicts.
my wife's parents are teachers, my in-laws, and I don't think they have any idea what we deal with in terms of those conflicts.
Yes, sure. It's so
You know,
much harder for us than someone who's managing 30 young people
I
every
don't,
day.
no, not for a second. I just think it's interesting that I
No, those
don't.
conflict like timing conflicts and
Yeah, just the constant juggle
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that you
yeah.
deal with. Yeah.
You know, being a self-employed artist does not. I think it would have been easier if I had a kid who maybe in when Annie was pregnant, I remember thinking, huh, I used to have a picture of Robert Plant. I was a
Yep.
fan of Led Zeppelin when I was younger, and
Mm-hmm.
he had his baby in a papoose.
Mm-hmm.
And in the background, you can see that he's just about to go on and play in front of 80,000 people in some stadium. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to be like Robert Plant, and my kid's going to just be like totally feeling it. And when I'm drawing, he's going to be drawing.
Yeah, no.
And yeah, that didn't pan out.
That's PR
So,
by Robert, and that's damaging to
yeah,
people to be
exactly.
spreading that
Yeah,
kind of bullshit. Because he's
exactly.
just
Yeah,
handing that thing off to four
exactly.
assistants and
And
his
then going
poor
and having
wife.
sex with a
Yeah,
load of groupies and taking
yeah.
drugs and checking back in a month. Maybe Robert Plant. Hey, there's a strong likelihood that Robert Plant will see this, right? So I should not
You should be more
make any
respectful.
slanderous. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. But
yeah.
yeah, those sort of it's difficult now, as I was saying before. I have to be really careful when I talk to new parents because I'm not very good at masking any of this, you
What
know?
are the mistakes you make? Just the talking about the horror.
Yeah, yeah. Don't describe the horror. Just say it's all going to be great. All going to be awesome.
I talk about it in
And
general terms. I don't like to tell them it's going to be awesome. I think I've said try to have fun, maybe a couple.
yeah, cool. Have fun with it.
Try to have fun. Because I had a similar experience to you, and um, yeah, yeah, but where it was shocking. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that leaving did you go through a period of mourning for your own life when for about 6 months after he was born? We it goes without saying that we adore our kids, right? And I wouldn't, nothing would change me having them. Here's the thing. Someone said this to me
no,
recently.
yeah, I'll let you go on. What I respect about the what you do in your work and how you and I can talk about it is that no, there's no meanness about it or lack of commitment to or love for our children. It's just a
No,
realism
yeah, get
about the
real. Come
bloodiness,
on,
you know.
fucking hell.
Yeah.
Someone said to me recently, and he was a new dad, and he was about a year in, and I
Mm.
said, "How are you finding it?" And he said, "Yeah." And I thought, here we go. That's a good start. Because
Get comfortable. Yeah.
most people sort of go, "Oh my God." And I think,
Yeah.
oh God. But this
Yeah.
guy went, "Yeah." He said, "I love my daughter. She's amazing." And I was like, "Cool, I get that.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Skip to yeah." And then he said, "But I don't really like parenthood." And I thought, and when he explained, and I got it, he said, I like her and
Yeah.
me and her,
Yeah.
and I have the connection and yada yada yada. But he
Yeah.
said it's everything else. He said it's the fact that I'm constantly stressed at work because I'm thinking, fuck, I've got to get home and
Yeah.
relieve whatever his wife was called. And he said, I've been to a couple of kids' parties and they're a nightmare. And I was like, yeah, and they're only going to get worse. And so he was just being real because I was like, fuck you. If you tell me that you enjoy kids' birthday parties, you're just lying or on drugs or not someone I want to know. And he was saying that. He was like, that's awful, isn't it? I was like, yeah. And you're going to have a lot of them. And if you have multiple kids, you can double it or treble it. And I thought, okay, that's where I'm at. You know, that's how I feel. I haven't enjoyed, I found parenthood quite in that respect miserable, but in respect of the love of my kid, the most wonderful thing in the world. But all of that peripheral shit,
You
turgid.
you do a lot of things.
Turgid? What
You
does
do
turgid? Do I mean torrid? What does
torrid.
turgid mean? I
Turgid
think
means like
erect.
basically like
Ah,
engorged.
cool.
Yeah. Like
Then
it's not that.
it's not
Uh
that.
no. It the
I've
thing
made
is,
that
I think you
mistake
wind up
before.
doing so much like the birthday parties, like you're doing this for them. Like you'll never do more for a person in your entire life. Like you have to do everything for them. And it's not just the wiping the bums or feeding them.
No, no, that's
It's
that's the that's the easy. That was the bit that everyone talks about,
yeah.
or you think about that. You think, God, nappies, and then within about one day, you're like, fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's the subsequent years of thankless
Giving of
shit.
yeah, of like, oh, I'm
Yes.
gonna take you to this atrocious party for 2 hours and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna sit and suffer through it.
Sure.
I,
Yeah.
I did think of you all because you know you're one of the first person who people who expressed to me their utter disdain for having to talk to dads at parks because I know that
Yeah.
was a big hang up for you early
Yeah.
when you go
Yeah.
to the
Or
park.
just general
Yeah,
parks, parties,
yeah.
school gates.
And
Yeah.
I wrote about this recently. I went to a party recently with my daughter, and there was a dad there who didn't say a word to anybody the entire time,
Okay.
and he
Right.
didn't look at his phone.
Oh,
He just moved away at all times. He was about 6 feet at least from another adult and just sat. I have never
right.
seen a more impressive performance.
Wow.
He just, and every now and then his kid would get his attention and need something, and he'd go over and talk to the kid and then just go back to
Right.
wherever he was
Whoa.
and just, he was gone. I don't know where he
That was
was.
amazing.
It was
He
incredible.
had he had zoned out of the situation.
Yeah.
I envy that.
And I was
Don't
in
get
two
me,
worlds because part of me wanted to engage him because I'm like, who is this creature?
yeah.
I
How,
need to
yeah.
know. But then another
But
part of me is like, I don't want to ruin this. Like,
no,
he's on a
leave him.
streak here.
Respect him. Well,
Yeah.
that's cool, man. I should just clarify as well that my aloofness is not because I think that I'm like a better guy or a bet, that I'm cooler than the other dads. I just would, it's we got a dog recently, and it's very similar when you have a kid.
Mm.
That people therefore assume that you're like it's like when people discover Christianity or and they get the glaze
Yeah.
and I had a kid and I was liking it, but I thought I don't give a shit about your kid. Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was the
Yeah.
same when
Yeah.
I got a dog and now you go to the park and people talk about your dog and then they want to talk about their dog. I don't give a fuck about the dog. It's just a thing that I got because we thought it was a good idea. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I think
that's
I realized pretty early on that I was more, yeah, probably more interested in my kids than kids in general. And
yeah.
but their friends fascinate me, and when they interact and like that stuff cracks me up. I'd rather listen to the kids than try and have a conversation with a parent I don't know, probably.
Totally right. And
Because
don't
kids are
get
funny.
and yeah, really funny. Nice
Yeah,
kids are funny. There obviously there's a
yeah,
lot of them that I think, but you realize quickly that yeah, there are some real gem kids. And if I hadn't had a kid, then I wouldn't have met some of these kids. And there are some kids that are friends with my kid that I think I really love those kids. Like I
yeah,
kind of almost consider them friends. It's a dodgy territory, isn't it? Whenever
yeah.
old man talking about kid friends. But I
But they're
do. There are
people.
some kids. Yeah,
They have
they're
characters.
exactly. They
Yeah,
are real in the same way that the ones who are pricks. There are some
yeah.
real amazing kids that you know will go on to continue being amazing. So yeah, yeah, yeah. All of that's good. But day to
When
day, I'm all about me.
when did
It's me time.
when did you start integrating all those challenges into your work, into your artwork?
Oh, very recently.
Right.
This is a recent thing, and this is a ongoing. this is my thing now. I gave up on. I used to do stuff on Instagram to try and get work. Here's a
Yeah.
thing that I designed. 3 likes. No one gives a shit. Um, so then I did a couple of things where something had happened and I didn't what's the word? I didn't think, oh, I will do this, this will get likes. Something had happened and I observed it and just did something on it. And it got a big response and I enjoyed the response that it got in so much as it was other parents saying the type of parents that would respond to it were the type of parents that I like, either
Right.
people that I already know or people that I didn't know that would say that would tune into it because the kind of parents that would go, oh, I don't think
Yeah.
that's I'd be like, good, you go over there and knit,
Yeah.
and that dad
Well,
that's
typically it breaks two ways for me. I've noticed like there's like a oh, it's all terrible and let's make jokes about how bad being a parent is. And that, if not done right, can get pretty old
yeah.
and pretty depressing and pretty obvious and sort of sitcom-y.
Yeah,
And
because no one really thinks that, because if you really thought that, you would be saying, I don't want to raise my kids,
also, I
right?
don't think you'd be engaging in the art, maybe, right? You wouldn't like you'd want to talk about something else while you're working, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway, and then there's the side you're talking about that's like, oh no, we cannot say a bad word. They're beautiful creatures. Nothing could possibly go wrong. But as we were saying before, like they're people, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember which part, which piece of work it was that had that response?
The first one, no, I don't, if I'm being honest. I'm kind of
Mm,
in it because it's the thing that I'm doing now.
yep.
There was I can't actually remember, but I can remember roughly when it was. It was no, it's only well really recent, just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, John, in New York, picked up on it and he said, that's what you should be doing. Stop
Right.
doing everything else. Go
Mm,
with that because he said it that I can tell that this is something that you really know about. You're not
yeah.
trying to think
Yeah.
it's coming naturally and people are responding and run with that.
Ha-
And it was a kind of a light bulb moment. It was like, yeah, why aren't I using this experience more because I've got source material right in front of me, you know.
Yeah. How's
Um,
that felt working that into your work? Like, is that something you would have cringed at like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago?
I don't think cringed at, but those things have to happen naturally. I
Yeah.
think if you are thinking, what can I do? It like from a cynical point of view, oh, parenthood, that might get likes. If you're doing it for
Yeah.
the likes, then
Yeah.
it's cringeworthy and people can smell it. But if you're doing it because you're generally it's a catharsis, then people I think get on board if they
Yeah. It's been
sense,
interesting for me because it's not something I ever thought I would necessarily write about. And then as I sort of, particularly since starting the Substack, when I just sort of was like, oh, I'll write a different thing every week and I'll see what I'm feeling like. The gardeners are here, so this is a very LA moment. I It's funny, like then I would start to write about family things just because that's what's happening in my life, particularly
yeah,
as I'm the sort of main parent.
yeah,
And yeah, people respond to it, and then you're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
and it's felt doesn't always feel great, but it's felt better. Like, I guess,
That it's a
yeah,
form
using
of
that
therapy, I think,
probably,
I, I think so. I'm always mindful when I do it. I think I don't want to hurt anyone. I would hate my kid when he's older to look at anything and go, "Oh, is that how you felt?" So I'm
yeah.
mindful of that, but it's not generally the content is not about him. There's a
No, it's
brilliant
about you.
program. Yeah, it's about
Yeah,
exactly. It's about
yeah,
me, and I want to
and your midlife crisis.
and my midlife crisis. There's a brilliant TV show. Motherland. Have you seen that? It's a BBC show, but it's on
No.
Netflix. I don't know if it's made it over there.
Okay.
It's so good, and it's about parenthood. That didn't really influence it, but if I was thinking about things that I've seen that it didn't influence what I'm doing now. But that is genius. And it's about parenthood, but the children aren't even in the show. They don't appear, or they might appear in the background, but it's
Right.
entirely about the parent parents and their failures. And so
Mm.
that's, I guess, what I'm doing with it. But
Yeah, I'm
yes.
probably a bit the same. I try not to put them too front and center just because of that reason. Like you say, I
Well,
don't want to.
you don't want to alienate people who haven't got kids or haven't been
Yep.
fortunate enough to get or are trying to have kids and blah, blah, all of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Uh, and B, someone said to me, or I don't know if it's a well-known phrase, but the kid didn't ask to be born.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
don't whinge about it's not their fault, but my own way of dealing with it, that's
Yeah.
something that
And there is an old expression I got taught, I think back when I was in writing school, that no one asked to have a writer in the family.
right.
So I have to be conscious of that too, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's not always your other family members' favorite things. And
Yeah,
I've
right.
certainly had my wife shut things down.
Right.
I don't know if
Okay.
you've ever
What
experienced that.
before you publish something?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Really? Well,
yeah.
you've been censored by the
Just a bit like,
wife.
oh, I don't really want you putting that out there, and you have to, and then you have to weigh that up a bit, like
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think if one is the
like I'd rather
victim,
stay married probably than, you know, have
for
50 more
now.
people appreciate what I'm doing on,
Yeah, for now. That'll change when you
you
get
know,
a few when you get a whiff of success and you
when I get a
think, okay.
Pulitzer, yeah, then I'll be like, yeah, fuck
Yes.
it,
Screw
I'm
you.
out. Oh my
Yeah,
God, he's got
man.
the blower out. Here we go, Al. Geez
Well,
Louise.
listen, I got to, God, 50 minutes goes like that, huh? I got to
Yeah, I
leave
know.
in five max. We can pick up another time.
Yeah, you got to go.
I got to
And
go and
now it's
pick
a
up the
wind tunnel
kid.
here.
Got to pick up the kid. I
You
mean,
got to pick up your kid.
this says it all. Annie's in Copenhagen. I've got to go and get the
You
little
couldn't be
guy.
any closer. You
Unbelievable.
could
What, the
not be
wind
any
tunnel?
closer.
If it's any consolation, I can't hear it. I want to hear it.
Wow,
I
Zoom's
want
really
it.
shut that out. That's great.
It's
Because I can't hear a damn thing. Yeah, you got to pick your kid up.
we can pick up again if you need to, or if you've got enough there. That's up to you. That's up to you, man.
I'd like to get on your midlife crisis, but maybe another time.
Yeah, we can go part two,
Yeah.
midlife crisis. Yeah, I got a lot to say on that. Let
Okay.
me tell you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Al.
Okay, man.
See ya.
See you soon.
All right, Al Murphy, there you have it. Thanks, Al. And we will hopefully catch up again soon. Thanks to you for listening all this time, all the way through. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, please subscribe to the Substack, TBH with Toby B. Hemingway, or this podcast, or both. That'd be fantastic. And all the music in the podcast today is by my old band, Horse Stories. You can find them on the evil streamers. Until next time, bye.